After 20 years and over 50 motorcycles to my name, I find myself going back to one particular bike that's really underappreciated, the Suzuki SV1000S. Much to my surprise, not really a lot exists online on YouTube that reviews this motorcycle in any kind of comprehensive way. I took it upon myself to buy the motorcycle again and enjoy it, and here it is, my very own conclusive, complete, honest review of the K5 Suzuki SV1000S. Zdravo I dobrodošli, bon dia, bem-vindos, servus, willkommen, buenos dias, bienvenidos, greetings riders, and welcome to another Pegasus Motorcycle Tours and Consulting review, this time of my very own SV1000S by Suzuki. This is a 2005 model that's easy to tell by the black frame and the red color, and this remains one of my favorite twin sport bikes of all time. I think this is one of the most underappreciated motorcycles that could be had for silly money. It's just such an awesome motorcycle for the money that you can get it for, and it's really not very common on the streets. Obviously it's a little older now, but you usually see them in pretty good shape, even though they are considered more of a beginner bike. This is a leader, mind you, a V-twin sport motorcycle that was produced to rival the likes of Ducati naked bikes of that era, such as the 916. Now, there's a lot to be said about this motorcycle, but I want you to know this review comes from owning 4 of these bikes. Needless to say, I'm quite a fan. There's only a few other bikes that I return to in such great number. Another one that I actually own right now for commuting purposes is my VFR 800. I've owned as many of those, and I keep coming back to that bike for the same type of utilitarian feeling that it provides. And the benefits of something like that for commuting is just unmatched, even with the bigger brother. But for that, please take a look at my VFR 800 Interceptor review. The Suzuki SV started in 1999 as a 650 version. Now, I've owned the second generation starting from 2001 and on, which was aesthetically revamped among other things. And I've owned that for about 6 days, I think less than a week in any case. It was in yellow, and I just found it very underpowered for my needs, for my preferences on the highway, etc. It's a half fairing version that I own, so half naked basically. The 650s come without the bottom part of the fairing, and I just did not enjoy that motorcycle on the highway at all. It catches the wind kind of awkwardly, and for being so light and underpowered, I decided immediately to upgrade to 1000. And 1000 keeps a smile on your face, you best believe it. I found a red one just like this, fully faired, from another state. I actually had to drive, take a week off and get it. And that person got it from, I think, Minnesota. No, not Minnesota. He got it from Montana. Had it shipped to northern Indiana, and then I got it from him back when I lived in Michigan. Enjoyed that bike all throughout my university days. I think I had the coolest motorcycle on the University of Michigan campus by far, with the fully faired version and a Yoshimura triangular dual exhaust in the back. Just gave it that sound and the look that this bike really needed to make it complete. I loved that motorcycle. For one, the motor powering this machine is a 90-degree liquid-cooled V-twin liter engine, so 1000 cc's, pushing about 118 horsepower and about 75 foot-pounds of torque. More torque than the 600 version of the Gixxer line, which is very much comparable when it comes to performance, not so much the suspension, which I'll talk to in a bit. But the power is more than sufficient to put a smile on your face, especially considering this is a fairly light motorcycle. Not as light as the Super Sport class, but very light for my standards. I'm used to bigger bikes. This is about 455, 58 pounds, 189 kilograms of weight. Very manageable for a liter bike. And a twin, mind you. A twin will always give you that torquier feel. It's almost like a motorcyclist's motorcycle. The appeal behind Ducati is that it has tapped into that feeling of a twin motor just pushing and punching out those ponies on curved roads like this, that obviously it has to be married with good suspension. But you get this in a light package, and it's just such a joy to twist on the throttle. You don't get a whole ton of vibration, but the predictable power and the acceleration and the torque is just addicting on this bike. You get this in the beautiful pearl red, I would say, not even metallic as much as pearl. I had to wait for the sun to come down a little bit behind the clouds so that it doesn't overwhelm the camera sensors, because you cannot enjoy this color over a screen. You have to see it with your own eyes. It's just stunning. The paint on this bike is stunning. Like I said, my original one was red with the full fairing. So the year was 2011, and I was with two other gentlemen at the University of Michigan campus. And we were sitting on Main Street, decided to go for a beer at Buffalo Wild Wings. And that's where we formed the University of Michigan Motorcycle Club. Interestingly enough, they both rode yellow Ducatis with their really loud side cases and very interesting motorcycles. And I kept up quite well with my SV1000, fully faired, parked right on Main Street. We celebrated a little too heavy that night with some beers, and I came back. I left the bike there, came back that night, or actually that morning, around 6 o'clock in the a.m., and the bike wasn't there. No other cars in the neighborhood, no visible on the street, and I kind of thought, holy smokes, did my bike just get stolen? I actually was warned that night not to park it right there on Main Street, right where Main Street intersects, right at the light. And I walk into the 7-Eleven across the street. They haven't heard of anything. Call the police. Police doesn't know, no information. And I think my bike just got stolen. So another day passes. I call the cops again, and they tell me that there was an accident. A drunk driver hit that motorcycle so hard it pushed it under the bike, the car, SUV that was parked. They had to lift the car, pull the bike out. It was about a $900 bill for me to go pick the bike up from the yard. And they caught the person because that person ended up hitting other cars. Drunk drivers suck. But it destroyed the bike. It just ruined the bike and totaled it out. Insurance came and offered me money for it, with which I bought another SV1000S in the silver color, this half-faired or half-naked, as you will. And I got that bike delivered from Ohio the same day that the insurance came, put a hook on it, dropped it on the floor, and dragged it up the truck, the flatbed. And it broke my heart to see a bike like that I went to such great lengths to find just be totaled. But not before I had a chance to do a nice burnout. The bike really ran fine. I could have purchased it again, but I didn't want to crash motorcycles. So I've been looking for a red one for a while. It's been 11 years, and finally I find a red one in this great a shape. I did check out a 650 before, but like I said, 650s just are not my thing. Skinnier wheel, one single muffler, and a little changes with the frame, shorter swing arm, obviously lighter. It's a very, very popular bike for racing. It's one of the more popular bikes for track days because it's such a light motorcycle, yet torquey enough for what most riders who like to take their bike on track days on the weekend would need. So it's actually, it was a motorcycle of the year at the time, sold very well for Suzuki. So that 650 was initiated in 1999, and it had a very much bubblier, kind of rounder fairing. In 2001, the Generation 2 came to life, and Suzuki tried to play off that success with the bigger motorcycle, the 1000. Now, the engine is sourced from the very successful TL1000S. That was a very successful motorcycle for Suzuki. It actually produced specifically to feed the need on the market for half-faired or half-naked sport bikes in the V-twin class, such as the 916 from Ducati. And it was a very, very famous motorcycle, very popular, very difficult to find, worth a lot of money these days, kind of interesting. Also very beautiful, ahead of its time. It has the S-Rad kind of front ram air intake that became popular at that time. It had inverted forks as well, better suspension in any case. It had some interesting ideas with the suspension that were short-lived. You can kind of research that on your own, but really, really great, successful motorcycle. So Suzuki took that engine, I think, and made quite a bit of adjustments to it for the 1000, which was then released as an EFI motorcycle. I think something like 300 improvements on that bike, or changes, smaller changes on the interior. Just an awesome bike. If you ever find one, buy it, keep it. That's going to be worth some money. It's hard. I mean, ask yourself, when is the last time you've seen the TL1000S? So they took that 90-degree twin, put it in the SV with this beautiful, I think, aluminum frame. The frame is a little different on the 1000 than it is on a 650, and like I said, the swing arm is longer. There's other changes as well, obviously, but looks-wise, it's fairly similar. It has a 180 rear tire, which is a little fatter, and again, the twin exhaust, which I do like a lot. I think it looks symmetrical, it looks right. Speaking of the exhaust, the original exhaust is very quiet, very simple, not very attractive. It's this very boring and monotone silver color. You can barely hear it. It's amazing how quiet they made that motorcycle, or this motorcycle, with the stock exhaust. But the pipes are also big and heavy, etc. But the aftermarket are easy to find. This is the SBK pipes, carbon fiber, very light, and they look better, although I definitely prefer the chrome look of my Yoshimura triangular exhaust. Triangular exhaust, come on. How awesome is that for a bike to be able to have that? And for example, some of my sport tourers, like the Aprilia Futura with the triangular exhaust, or even the Triumph Sprint ST with the triple exhaust but under the seat. Just awesome design. I love the triangular back end. I feel like it kind of closes out the motorcycle in a very sporty, unique way. So the Yoshimura triangular exhaust, check those out if you want to really tastefully upgrade the pipes on this motorcycle. Now there are two different versions. This is the S. The S is the sport, fully faired or half-faired motorcycle. The other version is without the S, so the SV650 or the SV1000, and that comes with a round headlight, basically not clip-on bars, as you will, different mirrors as well, no fairing up front. It looks very different, a little more city-oriented motorcycle. I like this version more, although it definitely kind of looks kind of like a little praying mantis, like some kind of insectoid slash machine. I don't know, it's the looks can be a little bit polarizing, but I think it's done a great job to keep its looks modern and appealing even to this day. The 1000 was never really a great success for Suzuki, and they ended it. I believe it was 2007. When it was no longer listed on the website. In 2005, the K5s had a few different changes. New ECU, the black frame with the black wheels. Before that, everything was kind of gray. It worked really well with the gray motorcycle, with the silver motorcycle. My third SV, actually one of the only silver motorcycles that really looks amazing, as much naked as with all fairings. Just a beautiful bike, especially in the moonlight, especially under the street lamps. My God, that color really came to life. But I always really prefer the red. There was other color options as well. A very interesting and bright orange, kind of like a rusty orange, a blue, a gorgeous blue, a black, of course. I think a darker blue, a darker gray in the later generations. So there's quite a few options for look. But for me, it's always been this red. On another video, I show how to add the wheel tape, because I think the wheel tape really brings the red down more on this motorcycle, balances it out, and especially if you add the rear seat cowl, it makes a huge difference on bringing the paint and balancing it out on this motorcycle. The one I had previously also had the full fairing. The full fairing is very nice, and it's kind of interesting that the bike can look just as good naked as it can with the full faired motorcycle. It always attracted me that it was one single color and not a whole hell of a lot of decals. Although in 2005 there was a limited edition version of this motorcycle produced called the SV1000S or SZ, and that was to mark the 20th, I believe, anniversary of the 600 Gixxer GSX-R, and it had those same decals that were found on the blue GSX-R. So if you do want it with the decals, try to find that one. Kind of rare, kind of difficult to do so, but I always liked the fact that they were a single color. So when the 650 was finally discontinued, they actually renamed it, rebranded, redid it as the Gladius. Never really sold too well, to be very honest. In more recent models, 2016 and up, I believe, the 650 was again renamed the SV, and it brought back some of that styling, like the tubular frame itself. This is the kind of motorcycle that makes you want to go out on the weekends or after work. I have a commuter, the VFR 800, another amazing sport touring motorcycle with the 3 bags in gorgeous pearl white. You can take a look at that review on my playlist. I've reviewed nearly every competitor of that sport tour, and that's my commuter. I love that bike. I owned it in multiple numbers just like this one, but I keep coming back to this one, and at night or after work, in the weekends, I love taking it around the hills and canyons, etc., by myself, with friends, but mostly by myself, just because it's so pure. The feeling you get from a bike like this, the twin, the sound, the noise, the smell, the vibration, everything about it is something really easy to fall in love with. I don't even have a phone mount on this motorcycle. That's how much I enjoy riding it, you know. I've no backpack, nothing. I just get on it, and it's not really a grocery getter. It doesn't like to sit around at 3,000 RPM, 35 miles an hour around town. It's not what it's for. It likes to breathe, and it likes to breathe the nice, clean country air with the beautiful curves and the desert canyons where you can really pick it up to speed. It is 1,000 after all. Now you see the sun coming out, and the color is just blindingly beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous motorcycle. This, of course, is a liquid cool motorcycle, and it does have an oil cooler as well that gets plenty of air up front because of this fairing. With the full faired motorcycle, the complaint was that the heat does not dissipate as well because it wasn't necessarily designed for that kind of full faired operation. So if you are riding that motorcycle in LA traffic all day long, you'll definitely feel it between your legs. So much about the engine. Now, there are certain difficulties with the V-twin that's 90 degrees, and usually what that results in is a very long motorcycle. That was a problem with the TL, and that's why Suzuki wanted to create something a little more compact. When I got on this, finally, after 10, 11 years, I felt it was a little compact. I'm not used to riding such motorcycles over the last years. I like twins, as you all know. I have a number of amazing twin motorcycles like the 1400 Moto Guzzi. I have a fully custom American Eagle Talon with a 1900 cc motor, S&S engine, 113 cubic inch. But this bike is a sport bike after all. The one reason that it didn't sell as well as Suzuki had hoped is because they were at the time offering the full line of Gixxer motorcycles from 600, 750 to 1,000 with more aggressive stance, super sport classification, better suspension, etc. More responsive motor, of course, a more powerful motor on the 1,000 and the 750. In fact, my very first motorcycle was a 2001 Suzuki 750 Gixxer. Just an awesome, awesome bike. So I understand why there wasn't really a huge niche for this bike as opposed to 650, which is lighter and again, very popular for track days. And first-time riders, beginner riders, returning riders, etc. This is intimidating for people who haven't been on a powerful sport bike. So it's quite satisfactory in that regard. Transmission, of course, 6-speed transmission, Suzuki standard. Nothing really to say other than the shifts are where they need to be, in my opinion. I enjoy riding this bike. I have torque where I need it because obviously it is a twin and you get that lower to mid-range power. That was also something that was improved in the K5 versions. The brakes, very sufficient for what the motorcycle needs at this size and this weight and this power. Nothing really to add. They do a good job. The wheels themselves, I believe these are shared among the Gixxer line of the previous era as well. I believe my 750 had the same kind of wheels. Nothing really too appealing in that regard. I mean, they're just standard wheels that kept the price down. Nothing really too beautiful to look at. Obviously, chain-driven motorcycle, pretty simple. The dash itself, super simple. You get this big triangular diamond shape analog speedometer, nothing to be desired there. You get the speed, big numbers, easy to see, and you get an analog RPM tach. And you don't really get a gas gauge or anything. Obviously, you just get the lights. 4.5 gallon tank. Gets about 150-mile range, somewhere around 40 miles a gallon, depends how you ride. Probably less the way you're going to want to ride this thing. Regarding the speedometer, what I've noticed on all my SVs with the clear windscreen, the stock windscreen, it somehow forces the light of the sun in such a way that it tends to melt the middle of the dial. The black part that's holding the dial is something that gets visibly melted over time and deformed, and that can also impede functionality. So it's kind of interesting, just the way that this windscreen has been made. This is a darkened aftermarket windscreen that prevents that. So just keep that in mind. If you find a used one and it's, you know, in southern or sunny states like California, you might find that the inner underneath the glass is actually melted. Kind of interesting, partially, not detrimental. The suspension, super basic. You have a 46 millimeter regular forks, and they do the job. They're definitely not as sport oriented as the Gixxer line. Obviously, that's what the Gixxer line is for, the super sport line. But they do the job. This is an around town kind of motorcycle. I wouldn't take this bike on a track with this suspension. But you can always swap the suspension. It's actually a very common, very popular upgrade to swap this suspension with that of the Gixxer, if that is what you prefer to do. And I think I would definitely consider doing that, because then you actually have amazing suspension with an amazing motor that all put together in this beautiful unicolor package. Fully adjustable suspension in the front for preload and rebound, and 7 adjusting options for the rear as well. You get a little toolkit under this, fairly spacious for what it is. Passenger seat here. You can fit your book, you can fit your little included toolkit, and a water bottle, my camera, my filming material. So there are no rider aids, no ABS on this model. There are no electronic controlled suspension, traction, etc. It's just a motorcycle. Electronic fuel injection, which is what I appreciate on a modern motorcycle. Other than that, you get basically 2 wheels, a powerful engine, and a bike that really performs beautifully. This is really wonderful how it handles at speed. You actually feel like you're going faster than you are. It's one of those bikes that doesn't hide the speed, and I really appreciate that. It's a great feeling. I hear that's why Mazda Miatas are so popular, just because that 50-50 balance of the vehicle is just such an interesting feeling that gets transferred to the driver. I feel like this is kind of a version of that. It puts a smile on your face no matter what your experience with motorcycles is. Even if you're not into sport riding, it's just the kind of bike that transfers all of that emotion from the road to the rider, just because of the purity of the V-twin experience. I really appreciate that with this motorcycle. Thank you for watching. I hope you found inspiration, information, desire to look into this bike. If you see it in your local market, I promise, if you like sport bikes, there's nothing not to like about this bike. I mean, if you're a taller rider, you might find it a little cramped, but other than that, the power, the delivery, the performance of this machine, the sound, the feeling, the pure V-twin experience is perfectly pronounced on the Suzuki SV1000S. Give it a shot, because you can have this for very, very little money, and you can always turn it around. They will sell still because they do have kind of like a niche following. There's always those of us that really, really love twin sport motorcycles. This is a pure machine, and I really appreciate for it. So I hope this review has been helpful. If you like what we're doing here, consider subscribing. Please participate in the conversation because I do this so I can learn from you. And if you really, really like what I'm doing here, you can support the independence of this channel by contributing on the Patreon, linked in the description. Otherwise, it's always a pleasure to have you. I hope to hear from you. Stay tuned for more motorcycles in this class. And now we are in year 3, and I've been really enjoying reviewing everything that I get my hands on that I actually want to learn, get to know, and get to keep if it comes to it. So run through the playlist and see what else interesting things we have going on. But I appreciate your being here. Thank you for your time. Until next one, Nick, I am out.